The first letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped beneath the door of Seo Min-jung's cramped studio apartment in Hongdae, like a secret whispered by the wind. She almost stepped on it, rushing out with her camera bag slung over her shoulder and a half-eaten piece of toast between her teeth. Another day, another wedding to photograph, another reminder of the love that seemed to elude her at every turn. But something about the envelope made her pause. Her name was written in handwriting she didn't recognize, yet felt strangely familiar, as if she'd seen it in dreams she couldn't quite remember. The paper was thick, expensive, nothing like the bills and advertisements that usually cluttered her mailbox. Inside, the letter was dated 3 years in the future. My dearest Min-jung, I know you won't believe this, but I'm writing to you from 2027. I'm 31 now, and you, well, you don't exist anymore. Not the way you should. I need you to listen to me, even though every word I write feels like betraying the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. Don't fall in love with Park Jae-hyun. I know you haven't met him yet. He's the man with the gentle smile who will spill coffee on your camera next Thursday at the cafe near Hongik University. He'll apologize so profusely that you'll laugh despite yourself, and he'll offer to pay for any damage even though your camera is perfectly fine. He'll have paint under his fingernails because he's an artist, and when he smiles, his eyes will crinkle at the corners in a way that makes your heart skip. Don't let him buy you coffee to make up for the accident that wasn't really an accident. Don't let him walk you home. Don't let him into your heart. Please, I'm begging you. Your future self. Min-jung read the letter 3 times, her hands trembling slightly. Someone was playing an elaborate prank on her, surely. But the details. How could anyone know about her camera? About her route to the university cafe, where she often stopped for her morning caffeine fix? She crumpled the letter and threw it away, but found herself fishing it out of the trash an hour later. Thursday came with an unseasonable chill for October, and Min-jung wrapped her scarf tighter around her neck as she pushed through the door of Cafe Melody. The familiar scent of roasted beans and vanilla syrup enveloped her like a warm embrace, and she felt her shoulders relax for the first time all week. She was digging through her bag for her wallet when it happened. A warm collision, the splash of liquid, a gasp of dismay. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. Your camera, is it damaged? Please let me..." Min-jung looked up into the most beautiful pair of brown eyes she'd ever seen, wide with genuine concern and mortification. The man, tall, with tousled black hair and paint-stained fingers, was frantically dabbing at her camera bag with napkins. Park Jae-hyun. Even before he introduced himself, she knew. "It's fine," she heard herself saying, even as her mind raced. Really, it's just the bag. The camera's protected, but he was already insisting on buying her coffee, on making amends for his clumsiness, and Min-jung found herself saying yes, despite the letter's warning echoing in her mind. Because his smile was indeed gentle, and his eyes did crinkle at the corners, and when he laughed at her joke about photographers being used to unexpected splashes, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. The second letter arrived the next morning. "Min-jung, you met him yesterday, didn't you? I can feel it, the way the timeline shifts around me. The photographs on my wall are starting to fade at the edges. I know you think I'm crazy. I know you probably told yourself he was just being polite, just being kind. But you felt it too, didn't you? That spark, that sense of recognition, as if you'd been waiting your whole life for someone to spill coffee on your camera. He told you he's an artist. He paints murals around Seoul, brings color to gray walls and forgotten corners. He'll tell you that art is about making people feel less alone in the world. He'll say it with such conviction that you'll want to photograph every emotion that crosses his face. But I need you to understand what happens if you fall in love with him. In 6 months, he'll paint a mural on the side of the old bookstore in Insadong. It will be beautiful, a garden of impossible flowers that seem to move in the changing light. You'll spend hours photographing it from every angle, and people will start to notice your work because of those photos. You'll get your first gallery showing. In a year, he'll ask you to move in with him. You'll say yes, and you'll be happier than you ever thought possible. You'll photograph his hands while he paints, the concentration on his face, the way morning light catches in his hair. Those photographs will become the most celebrated series of your career. In 2 years, he'll propose on the Bampo Rainbow Bridge, while the fountain dances with lights. You'll cry and say yes, and I'll be the happiest person alive. But here's what else happens. In 3 years, on what should have been our wedding day, Jae-hyun will be struck by a drunk driver while crossing the street to buy you flowers. He'll die on impact and I'll die with him. Not literally. I'll keep breathing, keep walking through the world. But the part of me that knew how to laugh, how to love, how to see beauty in the ordinary, that part will be buried with him. The photographs will mock me from the walls. The mural will be painted over, and I'll spend every day wishing I had never met him, because losing him will hurt more than never having him at all. This is why I'm writing to you. This is why I'm begging you to walk away. Please don't make the same mistake I did. Min Jung's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the letter. This was impossible. This was insane. People didn't write letters from the future. Time didn't work that way. But then her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi, this is Jae-hyun from yesterday. I know this might be forward, but would you like to have dinner with me tonight? I promise not to spill anything on you this time. She stared at the message, then at the letter, then back at the message. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. All she had to do was type no. All she had to do was delete the number and pretend yesterday never happened. Instead, she typed, I'd love to. The third letter was waiting for her when she returned from the most wonderful evening of her life. Min Jung, you said yes to dinner. Of course you did. I remember now. We went to that little Korean BBQ place in Myeongdong, the one with the ajumma who scolded us for not eating enough vegetables. You ordered the same thing I would have ordered, laughed at the same jokes I would have laughed at. He told you about his childhood, didn't he? How he started painting because his little sister was sick, confined to a hospital bed for months, and he wanted to bring the outside world to her room. He painted flowers on her ceiling, birds on her walls, and for a little while, she forgot about the tubes and machines and remembered what it felt like to dream. You told him about your parents, how they died in that car accident when you were 19, how you started photographing weddings because you wanted to capture happiness, to prove to yourself that love could last, that some stories had happy endings. You're falling for him already. I can feel it happening, the way you must feel a fever coming on, that warmth spreading through your system, that sense of inevitability. But I have to try harder to make you understand. Let me tell you about the night he dies. It's raining, a sudden spring storm that catches everyone off guard. We're supposed to meet at the restaurant where we had our first date, a tradition we've kept every month for 3 years. But I'm running late because of a last-minute client call, and he's waiting outside in the rain. He sees the flower shop across the street, the one that's about to close. He knows I love peonies, knows they're my favorite because they're so brief and perfect, like happiness itself. So he runs across the street to buy me flowers. The drunk driver runs the red light at exactly 7:43 p.m. I know because I see it happen from the restaurant window. I watch the man I love fly through the air like a broken bird, and the sound he makes when he hits the pavement. Min Jung, that sound will haunt me for the rest of my life. The peonies scatter across the wet asphalt like dropped prayers. This is what love costs. This is the price of letting someone matter so much that their loss destroys you. This is why you need to walk away now while you still can. I'm not just trying to save him, I'm trying to save you. But Min Jung couldn't walk away. Over the next few weeks, as more letters arrived with increasing desperation, she fell deeper and deeper into something that felt like destiny. Jae-hyun was everything the letters said he would be and more. He painted with the passion of someone trying to save the world one wall at a time. He looked at her like she was a miracle he'd been waiting his whole life to witness. When she showed him her photographs, he didn't just look at them, he saw them, understood the stories she was trying to tell, the emotions she was trying to capture. You make the invisible visible, he told her one evening as they walked along the Han River, the city lights reflecting in the dark water like fallen stars. That's a kind of magic. The letters kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. He's painting the bookstore mural next week. Don't go to see it. He's going to ask you to move in with him on the first snow. Say no. The gallery owner who discovers your work because of the mural photos. Her name is Kim So-ra. She has a scar above her left eyebrow and always wears red lipstick. When you meet her, remember that success built on tragedy isn't worth it. I'm fading, Min Jung. The photographs of us are disappearing from my walls. Soon, I won't remember what his laugh sounded like. what his hands felt like, how he made me feel like the most important person in the world. Is that what you want? To forget him completely? Maybe it is. Maybe forgetting is better than this endless ache. But the most heartbreaking letter came 6 months later, just after Jae-hyun had finished the bookstore mural, a garden of impossible flowers that seemed to dance in the changing light, exactly as the letters had predicted. Min-jung, something's wrong. I'm still here, still remembering, but the memories are different now, softer, like looking at the past through gauze. I think I understand what's happening. Every choice you make differently, every moment you experience with him, it doesn't erase our timeline. It creates a new one, a parallel path where maybe, just maybe, things end differently. I've been so focused on the ending that I forgot about the middle. I forgot about the morning he made you breakfast and burned the pancakes because he was too busy staring at you. I forgot about the night you got caught in the rain and he gave you his jacket, and you both ran home laughing and soaked to the skin. I forgot about the way he holds your camera so carefully when you ask him to, like it's made of spiderwebs and moonlight. I forgot that even if the story ends in heartbreak, the middle was still beautiful. Maybe I've been selfish. Maybe I've been trying to protect myself from pain instead of protecting you from missing out on joy. I don't know what will happen in your timeline. Maybe the drunk driver takes a different route that night. Maybe you choose a different restaurant. Maybe you decide to celebrate at home instead. Or maybe the tragedy still happens, but you're stronger than I was. Maybe you find a way to carry the love instead of the loss. I can't keep writing these letters. Each one I send seems to split reality a little more, and I'm afraid of what might happen if I keep interfering. But I want you to know something. Loving Park Jae-hyun was the best thing I ever did, even though losing him was the worst. He taught me that beauty isn't diminished by brevity, that photographs fade, but the moments they capture are eternal. That love isn't about guarantees. It's about choosing to be vulnerable enough to let someone matter. If you're reading this, it means you chose love despite my warnings. It means you were braver than I was in the end. Take care of him, Min-jung, and let him take care of you, your other self. The letters stopped coming after that, but Min-jung found she didn't need them anymore. She had made her choice, had stepped fully into the uncertain beauty of loving someone completely. 1 year later, Jae-hyun asked her to move in with him on the first snow, just as the letters had predicted. She said yes, and they spent the evening packing her few belongings while fat snowflakes drifted past the windows like lazy stars. 2 years later, he proposed on the Bampo Rainbow Bridge while the fountain danced with lights. She cried and said yes, and they held each other as the rainbow colors painted their faces in joy. The wedding was planned for the following spring. 3 months before the date, Min-jung started having dreams about rain and flowers and the sound of screeching brakes. She would wake up gasping, Jae-hyun's arms around her, his voice murmuring reassurances in the dark. "Just a nightmare," he would say, stroking her hair. "I'm here. We're okay." But were they? The closer they got to the date that had haunted the letters, the more anxious Min-jung became. She found herself memorizing everything about him, the way he hummed while painting, the smell of turpentine that always clung to his clothes, the particular shade of brown his eyes turned in golden hour light. She started carrying her camera everywhere, compulsively documenting their life together. Photos of his hands mixing paint, photos of him sleeping, peaceful and beautiful in the morning light, photos of him laughing at something on his phone, unguarded and joyful. "You're going to wear out that shutter," he teased one day, but his eyes were worried. "Min-jung, what's wrong? You've been different lately." Scared almost. She couldn't tell him about the letters. Who would believe such a story? Instead, she kissed him and made excuses about pre-wedding nerves, about wanting to remember everything perfectly. The night before their wedding, it started to rain. Min-jung stood at the window of their apartment, watching water streak down the glass like tears. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, but all she could think about was the letters, the warnings, the terrible certainty of loss. "Hey," Jae-hyun said softly, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Second thoughts. She leaned back against his chest, solid and warm and alive. "No, never. I love you so much. It scares me sometimes." "I know the feeling," he said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "But being scared doesn't mean we're making the wrong choice. It just means we understand how precious this is. They went to bed holding each other, listening to the rain against the windows and the steady rhythm of each other's breathing. The wedding day dawned grey but dry, the rain having passed in the night like a fever breaking. Minjung woke to find Jaehyun already gone. Tradition dictated they shouldn't see each other before the ceremony, so he had spent the night at his friend's apartment. But there was something on his pillow, a single peony and a note. "My beautiful bride, I know you've been worried about something lately, though you won't tell me what. I can see it in your eyes, the way you hold on to moments like you're afraid they'll disappear. I don't know what's frightening you, but I want you to know, I'm not going anywhere. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever if I can help it. You're stuck with me, Song Minjung, for better or worse, in sickness and health, for all our days. I'll see you at the altar. Forever yours, Jaehyun P.S. I picked the peony from the garden at the venue. Don't worry, I asked permission first." Minjung laughed through her tears, holding the flower carefully. Of course he had asked permission. Of course he had thought to bring her favorite flower on their wedding day. This was the man who painted murals to make the world more beautiful, who had learned to love photography because she loved it, who made her breakfast every morning even though he was terrible at cooking. This was the man worth any risk. The ceremony was perfect. Jaehyun cried when he saw her walking down the aisle, and she laughed at his tears, which made her cry too. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises that were both universal and utterly specific to them. "I promise to always buy you flowers," he said, "even if I have to dodge traffic to get them." The words sent a chill down Minjung's spine, but she pushed the fear away. This was their day, their choice, their story to write. The reception was held at a small venue in Insadong, not far from the bookstore where Jaehyun's mural still bloomed in impossible colors. They danced to old songs and new, surrounded by friends and family, and the kind of joy that makes everything else fade away. As the evening wound down, Jaehyun pulled her aside. "I have a surprise for you," he said, eyes bright with mischief. "Remember our first date? The little Korean BBQ place in Myeongdong?" Minjung nodded, though her heart had started racing. "I made us a reservation there for tomorrow night. An anniversary dinner for our very first anniversary. What do you say?" She thought about the letters, the warnings, the terrible inevitability they had described. She thought about rain and flowers and the sound of impact. Then she looked at her husband, with paint still under his fingernails and love shining in his eyes, and she made a choice. "I say yes," she said, "but on one condition. Anything. We take a taxi, both ways. No walking, no crossing streets, no dodging through traffic." He laughed, pulling her close. "Deal. Though I have to say, your sudden concern for traffic safety is adorable." If only he knew. The next evening came too soon, and not soon enough. Minjung spent the day in a state of nervous energy, checking the weather obsessively. Clear skies, no rain in the forecast, triple-checking their taxi booking, making contingency plans for contingency plans. "You're being ridiculous," she told herself in the mirror as she got ready. The letters were just stress dreams, anxiety made manifest, nothing more. But she carried her camera anyway and took pictures of everything. Jaehyun tying his shoes, Jaehyun checking his phone, Jaehyun smiling at her with the kind of love that made her believe in forever. The taxi arrived exactly on time. The driver was a kind middle-aged man who recognized their address and congratulated them on their marriage. The restaurant was exactly as they remembered it. The same ajumma, the same scolding about vegetables, the same cramped tables that forced couples to sit close together. They ordered the same dishes they had on their first date, laughed about the same things, but everything felt different now, deeper, more precious. They were no longer two people hoping for love. They were two people who had found it and chosen to build a life around it. "Do you ever think about parallel universes?" Jaehyun asked suddenly, apropos of nothing. Minjung nearly choked on her kimchi. "What?" "You know, the theory that every choice creates a branch, a different timeline where things happen differently. Like maybe there's a universe where I never spilled coffee on your camera, or where you said no to dinner that first night. Why would you think about something like that?" He shrugged, suddenly shy. "I guess because it makes me appreciate this timeline more, this version of us. Even if there are infinite other possibilities, this is the one where we found each other." Minjung reached across the table and took his hand. paint-stained fingers intertwining with hers. This is the only timeline that matters. They finished dinner as the restaurant began to close around them, other couples and families filtering out into the night. The Ajumma brought them complimentary dessert, little cups of sweet red bean ice cream, and told them they were too young and too in love and should go home and make babies. They laughed, embarrassed and delighted, and Jae-hyun paid the check while Min-jung gathered her things. Outside, the night was clear and cool, the kind of evening that made Seoul feel like a city of possibilities. Their taxi was waiting where they had arranged, the driver reading a newspaper in the front seat. "Wait," Jae-hyun said suddenly, catching Min-jung's arm. "Look." Across the street, the flower shop was still open, its windows glowing warm and yellow in the darkness. Through the glass, Min-jung could see buckets of flowers, roses and lilies, and, yes, peonies. "They're about to close," Jae-hyun said. "I should get you some peonies for our first anniversary." Min-jung's blood turned to ice. This was it. This was the moment the letters had warned about. The drunk driver, the scattered flowers, the sound of impact. "No," she said, gripping his arm tighter. "The taxi's waiting. Let's just go home." But Jae-hyun was already stepping toward the curb, already looking both ways like a responsible adult who had never been warned about his own death. "It'll just take a second," he said. "You know how much you love peonies." "Jae-hyun, please." The desperation in her voice made him stop and look at her, really look at her. "Min-jung, what's wrong? You look terrified." She couldn't tell him about the letters, but she could tell him a different truth. "I had a dream," she said. "A nightmare. About losing you. About you crossing the street and not making it to the other side. I know it's silly, but I can't shake the feeling that something bad will happen if you leave my side tonight." His expression softened immediately. He stepped back from the curb and pulled her into his arms. "Hey," he said gently. "It was just a dream. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me," she said, hating how desperate she sounded but unable to stop herself. "Promise me you won't cross the street tonight. Promise me we'll just go home together." "I promise," he said, and kissed her forehead. "Besides, I don't need to buy you flowers. You're already more beautiful than any garden." They got into the taxi together, and Min-jung felt like she could breathe again. The driver pulled away from the curb, and she watched the flower shop recede in the rear window, its warm glow growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. They were halfway home when they hit traffic. "Sorry, folks," the driver said apologetically. "Looks like there's been an accident up ahead. We might be here for a while." Min-jung's heart clenched, but she forced herself to stay calm. Accidents happened all the time. It didn't mean anything. It certainly didn't mean the letters had been right about everything else. But as they sat in the gridlocked traffic, emergency vehicles screaming past them toward whatever tragedy lay ahead, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just avoided one fate, only to stumble into another. "Min-jung," Jae-hyun said quietly. "Look at me." She turned to meet his eyes, dark and serious in the intermittent glow of passing headlights. "I don't know what's been scaring you lately," he said, "but I need you to know something. Even if the worst thing in the world happened to me tomorrow, I would never regret loving you. Not for a single second." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Don't say that. I mean it. You've given me more happiness than I ever thought possible. You've made me a better man, a better artist, a better human being. If I died tomorrow, I would die grateful for every single day I got to spend with you." "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop talking like that. I'm not trying to scare you," he said, taking her hands in his. "I'm trying to tell you that love isn't about avoiding loss. It's about making the love so strong, so true, so beautiful that it becomes bigger than the fear of losing it." The traffic began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. They passed the accident scene, 2 cars with crumpled fronts, emergency responders directing traffic around the wreckage. Min-jung caught a glimpse of scattered debris that might have been flowers, but in the darkness and movement, she couldn't be sure. They made it home safely. They made it through that night, and the next, and the one after that. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, Min-jung began to believe that maybe they had outrun whatever fate the letters had predicted. She never received another letter from her future self. The apartment building's mailbox remained stubbornly normal, filled only with bills and advertisements, and the occasional wedding invitation from friends who had witnessed their own love story unfold. Jae-hyun continued to paint murals around the city, and Min-jung continued to photograph them, and weddings, and life in all its messy beauty. Her work gained recognition, just as the letters had predicted, but for different reasons. Not because of tragedy, but because of the joy that radiated from every image she captured. They bought a larger apartment, one with enough space for both his canvases and her darkroom. They adopted a cat who liked to walk across wet paintings and leave paw prints that Jae-hyun insisted were artistic collaborations. They fought about whose turn it was to do dishes and made up by dancing in the kitchen to old songs on the radio. It was an ordinary life, which is to say it was extraordinary. But Min-jung never stopped looking over her shoulder, never stopped checking the weather before they went out, never stopped insisting they take taxis instead of walking, especially at night, especially in the rain. "You worry too much," Jae-hyun would tease her, but he indulged her anxieties with the patience of someone who understood that love sometimes wore the mask of fear. Years passed. Their first anniversary, their second, their third. Each milestone felt like a small victory, proof that they were writing their own story now, independent of whatever future the letters had tried to prevent. On the 5th anniversary of their wedding, Jae-hyun surprised her with a weekend trip to Jeju Island. They stayed in a small guest house overlooking the ocean and spent their days exploring lava tubes and hiking through forests of twisted trees. On their last evening, they sat on the black sand beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, oranges and pinks and purples that looked like something from one of Jae-hyun's murals. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small wrapped package from his backpack. Inside was a photograph, not one of hers, but one he had taken with her camera while she wasn't looking. It showed her standing in front of his bookstore mural, but the image had been manipulated somehow. Her figure was transparent, like a ghost, and around her feet bloomed the same impossible flowers from the painting, as if she were part of the art itself. "When did you take this?" she asked, amazed. "Last month when we went to Insadong for lunch. You were so focused on photographing the details of the mural that you didn't notice me borrowing your camera." He grinned sheepishly. "I had to teach myself Photoshop to create the effect. Turns out digital art is harder than it looks." "It's beautiful," she said, and meant it. "But why did you make me look like a ghost?" His expression grew thoughtful. "Do you remember what you told me once about photography making the invisible visible? I wanted to show how you exist in my art, how you're part of everything I create, even when you're not physically in the frame." She studied the image more closely and realized he was right. Now that she looked for it, she could see hints of her influence everywhere in his work. The way he captured light, the emotions he chose to emphasize, the stories he chose to tell. She had become invisible ink in his artistic DNA. "Also," he added with a grin, "I thought it looked cool." They made love that night with the sound of waves outside their window, and Min-jung felt more connected to him than ever before. Not just physically, but spiritually, artistically, in all the ways that matter. They had built something together that was bigger than either of them alone. Flying back to Seoul the next day, Min-jung dozed against Jae-hyun's shoulder and dreamed of letters that never came. In the dream, her future self was painting alongside Jae-hyun, both of them old and grey and covered in multicolored splatters. When Dream Min-jung woke up, Dream Jae-hyun was kissing her forehead and telling her it was time to go home. She woke up on the plane to find real Jae-hyun doing exactly the same thing. "We're landing," he said softly. "Welcome back to reality." But this felt like the dream, she thought. This happiness, this security, this sense of having won some cosmic lottery she didn't even know she had entered. Real life wasn't supposed to be this good, was it? As if summoned by her moment of doubt, turbulence rocked the plane. Passengers gasped and gripped their armrests, and Min-jung's first thought was of the letters, of warnings about tragedy striking when you least expected it. But the turbulence passed. The plane landed safely, and they walked through Incheon Airport hand in hand, just another couple returning from their anniversary trip. It wasn't until they were in the taxi home that Min-jung realized she had stopped looking for signs of impending doom. Somewhere along the way, without noticing, she had started trusting in their future together. Maybe that was the real gift of the letters, she thought. Not the warnings about what to avoid, but the reminder of what was worth protecting. They had made her understand the preciousness of what she had found with Jae-hyun, made her fight for it in ways she might not have otherwise. Or maybe the letters had never been real at all. Maybe they had been her own anxiety made manifest, her subconscious mind's way of processing the terror of loving someone so completely that losing them would destroy her. It didn't matter, in the end. What mattered was this. She was 33 years old, married to her best friend and greatest love, pursuing work that fulfilled her, living in a small apartment that smelled like turpentine and coffee and happiness. What mattered was that when Jae-hyun looked at her, she saw her whole future reflected in his eyes. That night, as they unpacked their suitcase and sorted through vacation photos, Jae-hyun paused at one particular image, a selfie they had taken on the beach, both of them laughing at something she couldn't remember. "Look at us," he said wonderingly. "We look so happy." "We are happy," Min-jung said, curling up beside him on their unmade bed. "Yes," he agreed, "but it's more than that. We look settled, like we've found our place in the world." She knew what he meant. There was something in their faces in the photograph, a contentment that went beyond momentary joy. They looked like people who had stopped searching, who had found what they were looking for and recognized it for what it was. "Do you think it will last?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. "What, our happiness?" Jae-hyun considered this seriously. "I think happiness comes and goes, but this, what we have, this is bigger than happiness. This is partnership. This is choice. This is deciding every day to build something together." He set the photograph on their nightstand, next to the peony from their wedding day, now pressed and framed. "Besides," he added, pulling her closer, "I have it on good authority that we're going to be okay." "What authority?" "I wrote myself a letter from the future," he said with mock solemnity. "Future me says we live to be very old and very annoying, and we die on the same day because we can't bear to be apart even in death." Min-jung laughed despite herself. "That's ridiculous." "Is it? I think future me is pretty smart." She fell asleep in his arms that night, and for the first time in years, she didn't dream of letters or warnings or tragedy. She dreamed of growing old together, of painting galleries filled with their combined work, of a love story that lasted long enough to become a legend. When she woke up, there was a letter slipped under their door. For a moment, her old panic returned, sharp and immediate. But this envelope was different. Thicker paper, elegant calligraphy, the kind of formal invitation that usually meant someone was getting married. Inside was a wedding invitation from her college friend Soo-jin, who had finally gotten engaged after years of dating. The ceremony would be in 3 months, and they were invited to both the wedding and the reception. "Another wedding," Jae-hyun said, reading over her shoulder. "Your camera's going to get a workout." "Actually," Min-jung said slowly, "I think I might ask someone else to photograph this one." "Really? Why?" She looked at him, this man who had taught her that love was worth any risk, and smiled. "Because I want to dance at this one. I want to celebrate with my friends instead of hiding behind my camera. I want to be present for the joy instead of just documenting it." "That sounds perfect," he said, kissing her temple. "We can be those annoying couple who dance to every song and make everyone else jealous." "Promise." "Promise." 3 months later, they kept that promise. They danced at Soo-jin's wedding until their feet hurt, laughed until their cheeks ached, and celebrated love in all its forms. Min-jung took exactly 3 photographs the entire evening. One of the bride and groom's first dance, one of Jae-hyun spinning her around the dance floor, and one of their own hands intertwined as they walked home under the stars. That night, she had one final dream about letters. In it, she was older, sitting at a desk in a sun-filled room, writing to her younger self. But instead of warnings, she was writing words of encouragement. "Dear Min-jung, fall in love with Park Jae-hyun. Fall completely, recklessly, beautifully in love. Yes, love is risky. Yes, it will change you in ways you can't imagine. Yes, there will be moments when the fear of losing him will nearly paralyze you, but love him anyway. Because here's what I know now that you don't know yet. The alternative to loving him isn't safety. It's emptiness. It's a life half lived, a story half told. a heart that never learns its own capacity for joy. You will have fights. You will have doubts. You will have moments when you wonder if you're strong enough for this. If anyone is strong enough for the kind of love that rearranges your entire world, you are. You're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and more capable of love than you can imagine. The future isn't fixed. It's not a destination you arrive at, but a path you create with every choice, every moment of courage, every decision to trust in love despite its risks. So choose love. Choose it again and again, in big ways and small ones, in moments of joy and moments of fear, in certainty and in doubt. Choose love and let it teach you how to be human. With all my love, your future self, P.S. Jae-hyun never stops being terrible at cooking. Learn to love takeout. Min-jung woke up laughing, the dream so vivid she could almost see the letter in her hands. Beside her, Jae-hyun stirred. "What's so funny?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "Nothing," she said, curling closer to him. "Just a good dream." Tell me about it." "Later," she said, listening to his breathing even out as he drifted back to sleep. "I'll tell you later." But she never did tell him about the dream, or about the original letters, or about the future that might have been. Some stories, she realized, were meant to remain private, held in the secret chambers of the heart, where all our alternate selves lived and loved and learned. Instead, she lived. She loved. She chose, again and again, to trust in the uncertain beauty of being human. Years passed, their apartment filled with art and photographs and the accumulated detritus of a shared life. They traveled together, created together, built something beautiful together. They weathered storms and celebrated victories, held each other through sickness and health, poverty and prosperity, joy and sorrow. They grew old together, just as Jae-hyun had predicted in his joke about future letters. Their hair turned grey, their hands developed new lines and spots. Their bodies moved more slowly, but their hearts remained young. On their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by friends and family, and the artwork they had created together over the decades, Min-jung looked at her husband, still painting, still creating, still seeing the world through eyes that found beauty in the most unexpected places, and felt a deep gratitude for every choice that had led them to this moment. "Any regrets?" Jae-hyun asked, following her gaze around the room filled with photographs and paintings that told the story of their love. "Only one," she said. His eyebrows rose in surprise. "What's that?" "I wish I could go back and tell my younger self not to be so afraid, not to waste so much time worrying about what might go wrong instead of celebrating what was going right." Jae-hyun smiled, the same gentle smile that had captured her heart all those years ago in a coffee shop, when he spilled his drink and changed both their lives forever. "Maybe you can," he said. "Maybe somewhere, in some parallel universe, there's a version of you who needs to hear exactly that message." "You think so?" "I think love creates its own kind of time travel. I think when we love someone completely, we send ripples backward and forward through time, touching all the versions of ourselves that were and are and might be." Min-jung laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that held tears at its edges. "That's very poetic for someone who's had too much champagne." "I'm a very poetic drunk," he said solemnly, then grinned. "Also, I'm not drunk. I'm just happy." "Good," she said, standing up and extending her hand to him. "Because I want to dance with you. One more time. One more time. One more time tonight. We'll have plenty of other chances." He took her hand and led her to the makeshift dance floor they had created by pushing back the furniture. Around them, their guests continued to celebrate, but for Min-jung, the world had narrowed to just this: the man she loved, the music playing softly in the background, and the certain knowledge that some choices echo through eternity. They danced slowly, carefully. Two people who had learned that love was not about avoiding endings, but about making the middle so beautiful that they became their own form of forever. And somewhere, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, Min-jung could have sworn she heard the rustle of paper, the scratch of a pen, the whisper of a letter being written across time. "Dear Min-jung, you made the right choice. Love always, your future self." But when she looked around, there was only Jae-hyun, still holding her close, still dancing with her under the lights they had strung up in their small apartment, still choosing her every day just as she chose him. It was enough. It was everything. It was love.